All right, welcome to the Experience Better video podcast series. I'm Josh Beekler, PT.
My name's Adam Lees, PT as well.
So Adam, we had a couple, we're halfway through the football season, college, NFL, and we're seeing like a lot of these soft tissue injuries and a couple pec tears. J.J. Watt was, probably a more famous one, tore his pec, and then we had a few other guys. I can't recall who all did, but can you walk us through kind of the pec muscle and what it does, how it works?
Yep, so the pec muscle, it's the muscle on the front side of your chest, and so typically, like you said, J.J. Watt, I think another one was maybe an offensive lineman.
Yeah.
And that makes sense because, they're punching or they're trying to swim move the different movements that the pec has to act forcefully.
Right.
And so what the pec does is it adducts or brings your arm this way, and it internally rotates your arm, so it brings your arm across you, and then it flexes the arm a little bit with the upper portion.
Right.
So there's actually two different. You have your pec major, which is like your big muscle. Then you have your pec minor that sits underneath it.
Sure.
And the pec minor, it's more of just like an accessory stabilization type muscle. It doesn't really do a whole lot. It
helps with breathing.
Breathing, yep. If you're an upper chest breather, like taking big deep breaths, like after you have some forceful activity. But the pec itself, the pec major, which everyone thinks of as the pec's like bench press muscle.
Sure. Yep.
It has two different portions. It's got your sternal head and then your clavicular head.
Right.
So the sternal head is like the lower fibers.
Right.
Clavicular head, upper fibers. It's just where it inserts.
It's kind of like a big fan that goes across your chest, essentially.
Yep.
Some of it goes up into your clavicle or your collarbone. Some of it goes into your sternum or your big bone,
chest bone.
breastplate bone.
Yep, and then they all come and they insert the smaller tendon right on the upper part of the upper arm bone or your humerus.
So I suppose it really depends where you tear it at is kind of the course of treatment, the course of surgery, non-surgery, or that kind of stuff.
Yep, absolutely. And so I would imagine the most common injury, especially in football or like weightlifting, powerlifting type injuries, would be like a tendinous rupture.
Right.
And so when that happens, you're definitely going to notice some gross deformity from one side to the other, and you're going to notice like, hey, this portion of my muscle right up here is gone. Yeah, it balls up. It's similar to like they say like a biceps tendon rupture. They call it a Popeye sign because it inserts up here and it just rolls down, and so it looks like you got this big ball, like you're flexing your arm right at the bottom portion.
Right.
And that's similar to what it looks like, except for it just is a giant depression here in the upper portion, like right in your front of your shoulder.
So assuming that's like what tore, that tendinous insertion on his arm, it's most likely he's going to have surgery to fix it.
Yep, and so like that was the case for J.J. Watt. He had surgery, and so what they do is depending on where the tear is, if it is actual like the bone chipping away, then they have to put anchors in and drill holes and make sure that bony portion is going to stay put. If it's the tendon, then they just they suture it down. There's probably some anchors as well into the bone. But yeah, it's a long process to come back.
Yeah, we're talking like a 6-month recovery, or maybe even longer sometimes, depending on the extent of the injury.
Yep. And I think that J.J. Watt, I think that he had one before. I don't know if it was the same side or if it was maybe it was his brother. I can't remember. But yeah, you hear about him pretty commonly in football players, and just that forceful motion where you're pushing here.
Right. So less commonly, the muscle, a pec tear might happen at the sternum or at the clavicle, through the muscle belly. It's pretty rare because that's contractile tissue, so it gives a little bit as it gets stretched. As opposed to the tendon, there's really not much give to it. That's just kind of what snaps typically. But if it truly is a muscle tear, and let's say it's like less than a fourth of the muscle fibers, then what? Then what's kind of the recovery after that?
Sure. And so that would be very similar to like if you had like a pulled muscle.
Sure.
And so that would probably be what you'd hear maybe in the mainstream media. Oh, he pulled this or has like a pec strain.
Right.
And so as opposed to like a tear, a lot of people
because a strain really is a tear.
Yeah, they're graded 1 through 3, with 3 being the full rupture.
Right.
And so sometimes you hear like on ESPN or whatever, the terminology is pretty vague. They're not medical professionals; they're sports analysts. So, but usually what you would do is it would fill in with scar tissue, and then as that tissue heals, you would try to apply force to allow it to try to orient itself in the direction that the muscle fibers lay down in. So you do that by gently loading it. So that would be starting out with probably just doing no weight, just going through the motion, and then gradually progressing. You'd use pain as your guide, and you'd use swelling, all the signs of acute injury as your guide, and then you just gradually progress them with increased load, increased resistance, eventually get them back to their sport-specific activities, going through drills, making sure they're pain-free. Because once that scar tissue forms, it's never going to be quite as strong as the original muscle tissue itself, but it's going to do, that's how our body heals itself. That's the best we got.
And the other thing that's going to happen is you're going to use the muscles that are left, that are intact, they're going to get more activation and maybe a little bit more strength through that. So you could end up with the same amount of strength you had before, even with less muscle, quote unquote bulk.
Yeah, like if you were going to maximize like a bench press or something like that, you probably wouldn't notice a whole lot. It'd be very similar to like a hamstring. With sprinters, they can come back and run just as fast after a hamstring injury.
Absolutely. Very good.
Yeah.
Well, Adam, we got a puppy lately, or just very recently, and tell you what's a bad idea is getting a puppy in November.
Yeah.
'Cause it's cold outside.
Sure.
It's real cold at like 2 in the morning. So thank goodness my wife is way better about taking him out at night. But like I get my turns as well. But you and I both sleep like rocks, and not great at waking up in the middle of the night. But however, selfish dad moment for both of us, I think here. But
absolutely.
However. Staring at a little dog staring back at you at 2 in the morning, going, "What am I supposed to do outside freezing?" When we're both freezing, it's like, all right, this ain't happening. So I would say if we're playing baseball here, and batting 300 is like an all-star level, we're not making the all-star team at our house yet. It's only been a few days, but we're not batting 300 yet. But we're getting there.
It'll get there.
Yeah, we'll get there. So. But yeah, so word to the wise out there: if you're gonna get a puppy, get it like in May.
Yeah,
that's what I'd suggest.
Where it's nice and warm.
Not November. No, at least it's not January. I guess. So
true. Yeah, could be worse.
All right. Well, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.